Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our series on Lunch and Learn. My name is Michelle Nose. I'm the Senior State and Local Policy Advisor here at Child Care Aware of America, formerly NACRA. Today we're going to talk about election activities that are okay and continue our series for 501c3s, specifically voter registration and why it's important to make it a priority, and talk about some events that you can include and incorporate voter registration into. Okay, so the webinar overview, we're going to talk about some of the general rules for 501c3s in election years, some of the do's and don'ts to make sure that if you are going to do voter registration, that you're doing it correctly and staying within the lines of your tax code, what you can do. There's been a couple frequently asked questions when we've had this series, so we'll get to that. We'll provide resources, Q&A at the end, and I'll also show you a widget that we have available on our website that you can use to help promote voter registration in your state. So before we get into talking about voter registration, I think it's important to know what you actually can and can't do as far as being a 501c3. As far as election activity goes, and how to be partisan, or how to, how to stay nonpartisan and avoid being partisan as a 501c3. So these are just a checklist. It's good to have and keep as a resource. The first couple of things that I want to talk about, what you can do, which we get a lot of questions about, is that you can absolutely register people to vote. You can distribute nonpartisan materials on the candidates and on ballot measures, making sure that if you're talking about one candidate, you talk about all the ones that are on the ticket. You can sponsor nonpartisan candidate forums or debates, so nothing political in their forum, but they can talk about issues, especially if you have a local election or a school board election or something like that. You can invite all the attendees to come and participate. You can absolutely educate, help new voters to understand the elections and the voting process, walking them through that, having information accessible and available to them. You can provide briefings to the candidates on the issues, and you don't actually have to do this in an election year. You can do it all year round, any year really. But that's something we really encourage, is talking to candidates that are up for election, that have been elected, talking about what's important about child care in your state, in your region. And then also you can encourage get out the vote activities and help get people to the polls on election day. So for example, if you have an office and there's going to be, you can plan a trip to include people, give people rides to the polls, usually during lunch or an hour. I think typically workplaces give you to go vote. Some of the no's around 501c3 election activity are any endorsement for an office or for a candidate. Making sure you don't say, we support so-and-so. We endorse what they stand for. As a 501c3, that's not allowed. Campaigning as a 501c3. You know, Child Care Resource and Referral Agency X is campaigning for this candidate is very dangerous, and you shouldn't do any campaigning while you are representing your 501c3. Contributing money, and same goes to that. As a 501c3, you cannot contribute any money as your organization. You can't let any of the candidates use office space or resources, including computers, printers, any of that stuff. You can't rate candidates. So on, your website, if you say, Mitt Romney gets a B and Barack Obama gets an A, nothing like that. You can't rate them and just differentiate between candidates on issues and how they rate. And you can't publicize, and on the opposite, you can't publicize which candidates share your viewpoints on contested issues. You can't directly state which candidates hold the same viewpoints, have stood up for the same policies as your organization. So those are things to be careful of. And I just wanted to pause really quick. I know this is a lot of information, and if you have questions, I wanted to bring your attention to the chat box on the bottom right of your scroll bar screen. And if you have a message, you can just click chat and type the message in there, and I'll be sure to answer any questions you guys have throughout. So voter registration, why is it important? Why is it important that we get people that we talk to every day to vote? And this is why. It's important that parents, providers, people that care about children and child care have a voice in the election. So without being partisan, if the pool of voters expands and people, and a big piece of that is parents, and parents of the 11.5 million plus children and child care have a voice in the election, it is going to make a difference. And so the first step of that is voter registration. It's expanding the pool of people who care about child care to actually vote. Some of the do's and what you can promote around voter registration in your 501c3 is you can register staff, board, and your volunteers. If you have volunteers that come in, if you have a board, if you have staff, providers, or R&Rs, or whoever you work with, you can have voter registration forms available. You can register clients at intake as a nonprofit activity. So I'll talk about the don'ts around these things in a second. But as clients come in, if you have an organization that does any type of intake process, you can have voter registration forms available at a 501c3. But with that, you have to be very careful to don't be partisan at all. I support even your personal opinion, even your volunteers' opinion, whoever you're registering to vote, whoever's the person registering clients or volunteers or whoever cannot specifically tell their personal opinion as who they're going to vote for. And so, and again, this is really important to train, if you are going to have voter registration, to train staff, to train volunteers, to train whoever is going to be helping register voters to know that they can this includes wearing, anything that supports a candidate, buttons, T-shirts, whatnot, at a nonprofit activity. Okay, and I wanted to bring your attention to an event that happens every year, but is really important in election years. And it's called Step Up for Kids event. And if you haven't heard of Step Up for Kids and are interested in learning more about it, please reach out to me, and I'll provide my email address at the end. But Step Up for Kids is an awareness event with multiple coalition partners who care about children's issues to come together. Usually you have a speaker at these events. You invite parents, children, everyone in the community who cares about children's issues. There's tons of different coalition partners and resources typically at them. And they're really, standing up for kids and talking about why the candidates that are running should make sure to include children and children's issues. And so it's a great opportunity to provide voter registration forms there, to have them ready to go, but also to really learn about what's happening with children's issues in the community and to build a common voice around with other coalition partners that invest in children. So the Step Up for Kids events on September 20th, 2012, and they're in multiple states. I think they're in about 25 states right now. And to find out if they're in your state, and I'll give these resources at the end, the Every Child Matters is really taking the lead on this. So if you go to everychildmatters.org, you can find out more about your event in your state, or you can email me directly, since I'll be working with them to plan a lot of the events. Okay, and then we've also heard about, well, how do you reach voters and get them registered to vote? And this is just, making sure you include voter registration during events that you're already doing, and then also getting a little creative about what you can do. So tabling at your organization's already set up events. If you have a back-to-school night, if you have a parent night, evening meetings, PTA, if you're involved in that, and any monthly meetings and anything where providers or parents or your community members that care about children are participating in, should definitely bring voter registration forms and help register voters. Any lunch events for parents that are scheduled or set up, or tours of the center, you can have voter registration forms available. Open houses at the child care programs, and also get creative. If you're doing a Step Up for Kids event, that's a great way to help out if you're doing. I know that there's been some debate, watch parties have been talked about, something like that. They're a great way to get parents involved and providers involved. Okay, and then another important piece is making sure that at these events, at the Step Up for Kids or whatever event you're going to be doing, that you're visible, that anyone walking by will know what you're doing. So if you walked by this group, you would be able to determine what their mission is, and it's standing up for children. And you know that some of these messages are not partisan. Just say, want my vote, invest in kids. It doesn't target any specific legislator or candidate running for office, but it's a great way that Every Child Matters did to show their support for children's issues and make a clear, visible statement about what they're talking about. Okay, so quickly just to recap some of the rules to remember, no reference to any party or candidate, no suggestion of who to vote for, making sure that the services are available to everyone. And I wanted to emphasize that last one. If you are only registering, let's just say, women, you can't just do that. You can't say we're just registering, women to vote, or we're just handing out, this to X demographic. You have to make sure that to stay within the 501c3 guidelines, that all of your resources are available to whoever wants them. Another piece of this is maximizing media. And you can really use the media to help register voters, to help gain awareness about the election and about children's issues in general. And these are just some suggestions of that. And again, you can raise the issues regardless of who the candidate is. And the candidates definitely take positions on the issues, but you need to make certain that you are about your issue, making sure that children are in a quality, safe, and affordable child care environment. So just some checklists to make sure to call into radio shows, talk about children's issues, why it's important for parents and families to vote, social networks and email, making sure that you promote the importance of voting through those venues, through blogs, if you have a blog, through your Twitter account, through your Facebook. If you have a newsletter, I'll show you where to find the widget, the Register to Vote widget on our website, and you can just copy-paste it and send it out in your newsletter. And also, on our website, or on your website, we'd encourage you to have a tool to make sure people know that they can register to vote on your website. And all those things are perfectly fine to do as a 501c3. Okay, so what can we do? I think that there's a lot of, don't mention candidates, make sure you're not partisan, but what can you actually do as far as election activities? Voter education, we talked a little bit about that. Talking about quality child care instead of talking about a partisan position. Excuse me. Issue advocacy, advocating all year round, not just in an election year necessarily, but all year round, not just close to the election, to the candidates that are running about the importance of child care. That's such an important thing because a lot of people will try to get their hot button issue to the candidates forefront and making sure that they're talking about it. But honestly, if you have already built a relationship with the person who's running or the elected official who is up for re-election, they will already be well-versed, hopefully, after you've spoken with them several times throughout the year about the importance of child care. Because, again, you are the experts in the field, the people that are on the ground, the R&Rs, the providers. You know so much about what's actually happening to children and families in child care, and it's important to share that knowledge. Voter registration, registering historically underrepresented groups of people who may not already have access or have registered to vote is really important. And a lot of parents and providers, you can make them they can make themselves accessible to the like a venue to registering people in their community. And doing more, that ensuring partisan activities are not attributed to the organization. So just making a very clear line if there's candidates or whatnot that are running, that you don't associate them with your 501c3 to make sure that you don't get penalized for your tax status. I wanted to address quickly some frequently asked questions. What does it mean to be a 501c3 organization? And it basically just means that the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, issued you as a tax-exempt charitable organization. And charitable is pretty broadly defined, and it can be, established for purposes that are religious, educational, charitable, scientific, literary, public safety, even there's some sports-related 501c3s. So it's pretty, animal safety and protection. It's pretty broad, but charitable, you have to make sure that you get a tax status that they do associate with being charitable. Number 2 question, may we invite someone who is running for office to speak at an event unrelated to the election? And what the recommendation is from the Alliance for Justice, and I'll give you their resource in a second. They're a great resource for 501c3s for any, the do's and don'ts of any election activity. But they recommend, and we agree, that it's not that safe to invite candidates unless you invite them all to speak during the election cycle. So it's better to, if you have one candidate coming to speak about the issues, that you invite anybody who's on the ballot to come to. Okay, so when is a personal time, meaning how can I get involved still if I want to support a certain candidate and on my own personal time? And that's a really good question. We totally encourage that to get involved, but it just can't be during your work hours. So if you work 8 to 5, none of those hours can be used for any of this election activity that's partisan. But after you are done with work, you can absolutely at night from your own computer, your own resources, do any election activity that you wish. But just make sure that you don't use your organizational resources, such as your computer, your work email, your printer, etc. That's crossing the line. Okay, and then can staff be listed as a supporter of the candidate with the name of the organization? And basically, as a rule, never use your agency's name. So I couldn't use Child Care Aware of America to support anything political on a pamphlet, on a flyer, on a website, on anything. You can't do that. That's another no-no of 501c3 exemptions. And if you are curious to know if you are a 501c3, whoever deals with the taxes in your office, you can ask them, and they will surely let you know. So I wanted to show you what I was talking about before, which is our voter registration widget, which we want to encourage you to use and promote on your website, on your social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So let's go find that. If you go to one way to get it, and this is kind of, I like this way, it's pretty easy to find it. If you go to our public policy tab up at the top, and you scroll down to in the states, you can see if you click on the state. You have demographics of the state, a lot of our different reports and studies on licensing, on their legislative session, our state resources, how they rank as far as family child care homes opposed to family child care, opposed to child care centers, where they fall within the state. So this is kind of a one-stop shop. But what you also find is this register to vote widget, and you can actually register to vote online. And it's you can just take this URL, cut, copy, paste, and use this widget in any of your newsletters, websites, anything that you promote on social media to encourage voter registration. Now, you can also, if you for some reason can't find your state, all you have to do is come up here and then click on, let's see, you can just change the last two letters of the URL to your state's code. And then any of the register to vote election forms will come up. So this is Virginia, just for example. So, cut, copy, paste your URL. You can paste it to email. You can paste it to Facebook. Really anywhere. It's pretty simple. And then you can encourage people to register to vote online. Pretty much every state has an option to register online. And something I also wanted to flag for you, make sure you know when your voter registration deadlines are in your state. I believe in Virginia, for example, it's, I want to say it's October 8th or 9th. And so making sure that you're aware of that so you're not promoting people to register to vote after the deadline. Okay, so I wanted to leave you guys with some resources and my contact information if you're interested in doing any Step Up for Kids events. We'll link you up with the right person in your state to make sure that you're plugged in. So just nonprofitvote.org, staying nonpartisan, is a great resource to make sure that you're within the guidelines. Alliance for Justice, as I mentioned. And then also the IRS website, making sure if you are not a 50, or if you're not sure if you're 501c3, how to apply to be a 501c3, what the rules, the official rules from the IRS are around 501c3s and election activities. And again, I'm Michelle Knowles. I'm the Senior State and Local Policy Advisor at Child Care Aware of America. Here's my email, michelle.knowles@NACRA. And if you have any questions based on today's presentation or just in general about voter registration or election activities for 501c3s, I'd be happy to answer them. It looks like nobody's chatted any questions in your chat box on the side, and I'm sure I wasn't that clear, but if you do come up with them after we end today, please let me know, and I will send you a message. Okay, and a response. All right, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.